right, good afternoon. My name is Jordan Beth Vincent. My official title is not producer. It's Research Fellow in Creative Technologies at Deakin University, but my role is more like a producer at the Deakin Motion Lab, so please forgive me for making up a title like that. And thank you so much for sticking around for the last session of the day, because I know this is the last thing keeping you from either home or the after party. So I will really try to be as entertaining as possible. So today I want to talk a little bit about Unity and virtual production in terms of creating animated content for film and television. I'm going to talk about how Deakin Motion Lab is using Unity to upend the traditional animation and content creation workflows across a number of different screen-based and immersive reality productions. Our work is trying to shift, fundamentally, how people work together to create content. This presentation will explore how Unity can be transformed into a production ecosystem for film and television, and how Deakin Motion Lab has done this through our own virtual production pipeline, the Alchemy pipeline. I think most of you would agree with me when I point out that the worlds of animation, games, immersive reality, film, and TV are getting closer. Games are increasingly cinematic, and films are starting to leverage the real-time and interactive capabilities of game engines. This represents an enormous opportunity for creatives to work across genres and systems and to tell amazing stories. However, the pathways to bridging the chasms of these worlds in terms of workflow, processes, timelines, roles, training, and outputs are not without their challenges, and I'll be talking about that as well. So I'll tell you a little bit about Deakin Motion Lab. I'm totally chuffed that a little bit of our work showed up in the Made with Unity keynote thingy on the big screen. It was really exciting. I had to contain myself. Deakin Motion Lab is a research and development hub focused on art, movement, and technology and based at Deakin University's Burwood campus. And we've worked extensively across film, television, animation, games, and live theater productions since our lab was founded back in 2006. So we've demonstrated our expertise in this space, in virtual production specifically, through a series of Acme masterclasses earlier this year, and we'll be taking our full system, to the Screen Producers of Australia's conference Screen Forever in November. So if you're planning on being at Screen Forever, we'll be running the Innovation Hub and basically cutting together animated sequences live using our workflows and systems. So just to give you a little bit of a taste of some of our work, this is just a show reel. Not everything we've done, but... they say don't work with animals and children. There's probably a reason for that. We have had animals in our lab, but the baby in the quilting is not actually a baby, if it helps. Definitely not. Here's some of the stuff that we've got in our lab. The core piece of technology that we use is motion capture, right? We have a 40 camera infrared optical motion capture system, which can capture a volume of up to 30 by 30 meters, but our actual studio is not that big. But it's all portable, so up to 30 by 30 is what I'll stick with. Lots of stuff. So I want to start by explaining why we began working in virtual production, and it really was about trying to solve an extremely frustrating problem. As you've seen from our show reels, we've done a lot of industry-facing research projects, but in the early days, so this is maybe 5-6 years ago, production companies would come to us for motion capture projects. But before we had live pre-visualization, all we had for the client to see was a bunch of dots in the 3D environment. And so once the capture was done, we would go away and clean the data, retarget it onto the animated character, and output it for the client. However, because this process was often done really, really early in the overall production timeline, there would be sometimes significant story changes that would happen after our shoot. So clients would often discover that what they thought they wanted and what they had captured on the day didn't work for the overall story. And they'd be left with this really untenable and frustrating decision. They could go back into the studio and reshoot, expensive. They could animate over the top of the motion capture data, which is pointless, or just make it work at the expense of the narrative. So I want to start, in case there are any animators in the room, by saying it has never been our desire to put animators out of work, I promise. We love animators. We have animators on our team, in fact, and there will always be a place for keyframe animation in our processes. But our move to replace as much of the keyframe animation as possible with human capture, human performance capture, has been helped forward in the last few years by some real leaps forward in what the technology can do, and particularly the storytelling capability of human movement. But we're also aware of a certain level of backlash from the animation community that motion capture has sometimes been seen as cheating or not following the traditional ways of working. Much of that feeling, I think, is starting to dissipate. And this is happening with the prevalence of consumer-grade capture technologies. But underneath that lies a real awareness that the workflows of motion capture and the workflows of traditional animation are extremely different. For example, on an animated production that we worked on, and I'm sorry, I can't tell you what it is at the moment, traditionally, the production company would lock down their storyboards to the frame before sending those storyboards off to an animation house overseas. So the risk of leaving anything open-ended in the creative process was too great. And even though they would usually lock down the storyboards frame by frame, they still would go through 11 review sessions between the animation house and the production company. So that's 11, only 11, because that was what was contracted. So these reviews were happening in that way. And for us, this is just totally an unacceptable way to work. It's so clunky. We don't want technology that locks people down. We want to open up collaborative and creative processes. We want better stories and fewer months spent arguing over this frame or that frame. So we wondered, could we make a cartoon in a day? Was there a better, faster, cheaper way to create content? And finally, what would happen if we designed our system at Deakin Motion Lab to keep the story at the center? Because quite frankly, and I hope you all will agree with me on this, if story is not at the heart of what we do, then why are we bothering at all? So here are the questions that sit underneath everything we do. How can we make the process of content creation more collaborative? In other words, what would happen if we drew on the kinds of collaborative environments we see in theater or live-action filmmaking for the creation of animated content? Secondly, and I know I just showed you the slide with all the gear listed, but how can we actually make this technology invisible? What if you didn't need to be a programmer or an animator or an animation director to direct content? Can we make technology, and this is hardware and software, an enabler of storytelling? So this brings me to virtual production at the Deakin Motion Lab. So this is actually, you might have seen a clip of this movement in the Made with Unity thing this morning. So the Alchemy pipeline is essentially a suite of Unity editor tools, processes, and workflows that draw together full body motion capture, facial capture, virtual cameras, real-time previs, real-time VFX, keyframe animation, and live editing to create content. We've been developing these tools for 4 years now. So these are some of the benefits of the Alchemy pipeline, and I promise I will take you through screenshots and examples in just a moment, so bear with me. So our system is designed to offer full creative control for directors because directors really like having full creative control, we found in our experience. But it creates a collaborative ecosystem for those directors to work in, where directors, animators, performers, and producers are all together making decisions all together. More buy-in means less wasted time. We're offering full pre-visualization. We're minimizing production and post-production processes and timelines. So pre-production in our system is just as it would be in any timeline, but we're trying to close down the rest of the pipeline so that things happen faster. And of course, if we're focusing on efficient processes, we're meaning time and money is saved. But this is never at the expense of the creativity. I should say that right off the bat. Okay, so I've got a couple of case studies for you here, actually. So this is the first one, Mini Beast Heroes. This started for us in 2017 as a collaboration with the ABC. And the idea was to bring virtual production principles to the making of a broadcast television show about insects for primary school age children. And this was the resulting production. There were a lot of parts of the ABC that we were working with on this. The project was funded and championed by ABC Education and the head of ABC Education, Annabelle Astbury. It was produced by Astrid Scott and Amy Nelson of what was then ABC Research and Development, and it was commissioned by ABC Children's Television. So it was like across the whole organization. So I'll play a bit of a behind-the-scenes teaser and then talk through some of the specifics here. And you'll see me looking really, really tired on day 5 of the production. So no judgment, please.
I'm Carl Smith, and I'm a science journalist at the ABC.
Check this out. Oh, ooh, sticky, toxic goo.
So the reason I've been shrunk down to size for this series, Mini Beast Heroes, is so that for ABC Education, we can introduce kids to these insects up close and personal. But also we want kids to learn a little bit more about the insect kingdom and exactly why they're so important for our life and for the life of all creatures on the planet.
Deacon Motion Lab is a commercial-grade motion capture facility, and we've been developing methods for creating real-time virtual production. We're really interested to see how we can make animation in a different way.
The European honeybee. Isn't she beautiful?
As you can see, I'm wearing a pretty interesting motion capture suit. And these little baubles all over me are picking up my movements. I would normally also be wearing a headpiece for recording here at the moment that picks up my facial movements.
The main thing we do is capture the movement of people. We have adapted that by adding real-time facial capture, so capturing the movement and the emotion of people's faces. We've taken that one step further by also being able to capture props and show real-time visualization using game engine technology.
Those aren't funny eyebrows. They're antennae. And they're covered in thousands of tiny little sensors that help her touch, taste, and smell. Hey, stop it. It's just me. That tickles.
Real-time visualization is being able to allow a director or a storyteller to see the CG characters, the computer-generated cartoon characters that they're working with. Instead of seeing a performer or an actor wearing a motion capture suit, which is covered in dots in a black space, they're seeing the entire CG world around them, but also the actual CG character that they're driving.
The stupidest thing I've done so far is probably riding a giant mat. Imagine like you're riding a horse, except it's just a mat on its side, and I'm meant to be riding an ant.
Meet the meat ant. Or if you speak Latin, the purple rainbow ant.
We can see enormous potential in the way that this animation pipeline allows directors, producers, almost anyone who has some experience in thinking about the moving image to step in and create animation dynamically and almost instantly see the results of what it is that they're doing.
I've shot mocap before and I've worked with mocap before, and I've done countless animated shows, but this is like a mocap shoot and an animated show all fitted together, so I've never done anything like that before. It is a different experience because you're working with an actor live for performance, and you've got all these other things that you've got to think about.
We are combining real-time facial motion capture, so we're capturing that on one computer. We are capturing the body motion capture. We are also playing back in real time the animated insect characters. We have full 360-degree CG virtual worlds, which our performer can see. At the same time, we're also capturing the movement of our virtual camera, which has full lensing capabilities and all the real-world camera movements that a real camera can do.
We're also really interested in the potential to produce immersive content for technologies like virtual reality and augmented reality.
These are all going to be new technologies that storytellers will be looking at using.
It's an R&D project, so no one's really done this kind of thing before. All these bits have got to fit together, and I think it's been really amazing how it has all fitted together.
So for us, Mini Beast Heroes was actually a hybrid production. The bug models were provided to us by a Perth-based company called Pixelcase, who were exploring using photogrammetry techniques to create the models. And I did hear that one of them got a redback spider out of his garden shed. Well, anyway, we all got really accustomed to looking at spiders up close through this process. The environments were created by Armchair Productions, and Stefan Wernick, who you saw on the video, directed the broadcast episodes. So Deacon Motion Lab rigged and animated all of the models, and we used our live system to capture Carl Smith's performance. And we also took the production to its final visual output. Sound and Foley were added after the fact. So we would have preferred to do the entire production from start to finish in Unity, but the assets we received were such that we ended up rendering the final episodes in V-Ray, apart from a specific sequence that we rendered using Unity and Octane in Unity. And that is the one with the match that you saw. It's because we created the environment ourselves, so it was optimized for the system. However, all of the pre-visualization work, all the setup, the live production, all of that was done using the Alchemy pipeline in Unity. So there's a few of the steps here. So we actually started from a storyboard, really loose storyboards, which for the most part were actually thrown out in the production because the director decided to try something, new, and you're able to do that in that kind of live environment. But having the storyboards allowed us to know what the key animated sequences were. So the bugs obviously are not driven by human movement. They were animated in advance. So this is the hero shot of the ladybug opening his wings. And by animating that in advance, we were able to use this content in our previs for the shoot. And this allowed our director and the rest of the ABC team to think through things like their camera angles and their timings and the overall flow of the episode. You can see on the right here, that's that final sequence rendered from the broadcast with all the overlays. However, since then, we've actually taken those same bug models and adapted them for the Unity real-time rendering. So here's the ladybug. So this is the same animation, but it's actually running in real time. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do that for the broadcast, but we have it now. But what this whole process demonstrated for us was that it is really possible to work this way, and it's also really fun. And although the timelines of the first series of Mini Beast Heroes meant that we couldn't use our entire pipeline, it did allow us to work really collaboratively. So we shot 6 broadcast episodes and a 360-degree video trailer in about 3.5 days. We spent half a day doing pickups and ended our 5-day production week with 7 rough cut episodes. We did this in mid-November of last year, delivered the final project in early January, and it was on Channel 23 and ABC iView only a few weeks after that. And it's still there if you want to check it out. So this brings me to my second case study here. So whereas Mini Beast Heroes was this kind of hybrid process, because of the final rendering method, the Adventures of Auntie Ada uses the Alchemy pipeline from start to finish. So I'll just give you a quick introductory, it's a really short video about this show. This is a children's animated television show.
Hi, my name is Pete Divers. I'm the Virtual Production Supervisor here at the Deacon Motion Lab.
Hey, I'm Jordan Beth Vincent. I'm a Research Fellow at Deacon Motion Lab. So The Adventures of Auntie Ada is a children's animated show in development for children ages 6 to 9.
The scene that you're about to see today is from The Adventures of Auntie Ada.
So our main character is named Ali. She's 9 years old and she's just discovered that she's going to become the research assistant for her Auntie Ada. And Auntie Ada is an incredible woman who's an inventor, an explorer, and a scientist. Over the course of the series, Ali discovers how exciting it is to learn about science and technology. She's got Ada as a guide and there's loads of adventures.
We create 3D models in specialist software before bringing it over into a game engine where we light these models like they were made out of clay, using virtual lighting, virtual cameras, and any post-production effects you'd see as well. My favourite part of the scene would probably have to be Gibson, the little sleeping dog that you'll see in the corner. You'll see him quite a few times as you get closer and closer to him. He'll wake up, he'll do a few different little things. Yeah, he's definitely one of my favourite characters.
So encouraging girls into STEM with that production. So we're using camera lenses that replicate physical live action cameras. We're blocking out the space, so this is on your right. So instead of going through storyboards, we're actually doing blocking like you would for a television show or a theater production. We're shooting as much of our capture live as possible, including sound, so dialogue is shot live. Full pre-visualization means that we can finish our shoot day with a product that is probably good enough to go straight to YouTube. So this is this video diary on the right. So we've put some animated overlays over the top, but this is essentially straight off the stage. And we can capture hours of content in a day simply by being prepared with our assets and environments. So this way of working is really great for creating animated content, particularly for really fast turnaround things like YouTube content. And as demand for content grows, a system like ours allows for better, faster, and cheaper production by drawing on our own knowledge of different production workflows, as well as the strength of Unity. But we can also use this for kind of other areas. So this is an example of how we might set up a kind of a tech viz. This scene is actually from an upcoming episode of The Adventures of Auntie Ada, where they go up to the space station. And we've thought about how you might think through your camera angles if you were going to do this in a live action context with a green screen. So this is the actual dimensions of Studio 2 at Docklands with our virtual environment, everything to scale. So you can try things out and also communicate complex ideas in this way. So I want to talk through some of the actual pipeline elements we've created in Unity for the Alchemy pipeline. And these have all been designed specifically for the live production process. And I should also say that they've all really been informed by our own experience working in live production. So if we'd be working in a project and thought, gosh, it would be so great if we could make that faster or try this in a different way. And then the nice thing about being in a research environment at a university is you can go away and actually do that. So in this next section of the talk, I'm going to provide a high-level overview of some of the features of this system, and I've got some screenshots as well. So the first thing that the Alchemy pipeline does is it centralizes all types of connections. So in a production, a standard production for us, this would probably include motion capture, one or more performers, facial capture, and external reference audio and video. So without centralizing these connections, you would end up with a situation in which each plugin in a project has a different interface. Their components are located across multiple scenes, and server connections are configured on a per component basis. So changes need to be synchronized in multiple locations. Total mess. So our tools centralize and consolidate connections of all types, solving this problem. We've also thought about single-click loading. So we're able to load any asset according to a set of customizable rules. So in our previous way of managing assets before this particular component was developed, we had to manually load and assign assets where appropriate. Automating this solution sets the scene configuration so that assets come in the way that we need them to be. And this is particularly important because in a live production, each take will have different recorded animations, even though they may be using the same scene. So a director might call for the next take, and we need, new recordings to be able to come in, but we want to be able to keep what we want, basically. So automation here is about efficiency, but not at the expense of where we need to be creative and flexible. So timeline is actually the core of this part of our pipeline. So we've built tools to generate timelines, and we filter objects for optimized recording. We're able to specify what gets recorded through the generation of tracks and the relevant elements within those. So in other words, this is kind of like a massive rubbish filter for animation. There's a lot of rubbish in animation. We keep only what we want and nothing that we don't. Our system also allows you to send assets and dependencies across projects. So we found that when we were moving to a new project, there were assets from prior projects we wanted to transfer. And to speed up this process, we developed a custom tool to enable improved dependency discovery and single-click sending and importing. Essentially, this is the reusing and repurposing of prefabs across all project thing. So it's essentially a collator. And finally, this shows the workflow for a common operation that we're performing on set all the time, right? So we're preparing for a next take. And previously, we would have to follow this workflow on your left here. So we duplicate the current scene setup and clear previously recorded data. But the problem is this is a lot of steps, and performing these repetitive operations, especially in a time-sensitive and highly stressed environment like a live production, carries a large risk of human error, and our programmers were finding it stressful. So by simplifying the shot duplication, as you see on the right, we eliminate this risk and reduce the time taken through this process. And in production, as we know, time is money. And what that really means is that it takes us fewer people to run the production, right? The more things are automated, the quicker we can go. So those are just some of the modules of the Alchemy pipeline. It's a bit of a beast, honestly. It's 4 years of development, so there's a lot of different components. But we've really spent a lot of time examining and questioning every single step of the production process. So this includes how we run a live shoot, who does what, right? Where they need to sit, what tools we use, all of that, and how we get from the first starting idea all the way to a finished output. The goal is efficiency where it supports the creative process, and technology as the ultimate enabler. I guess I should say Unity is the ultimate enabler, right? Yeah. To finish off, I just want to come back to the key driver for this development of this pipeline, and in fact for all the work that we do at the Deacon Motion Lab, which is that story has to be the heart. For us, technology is an opportunity to re-examine the way that things are usually done. We aren't super interested in replicating traditional workflows and processes unless they actually are the best way. We hope that in thinking this way and through our collaborations across industry, where we put our research and development into the high-stress environment of production, that we can see our work utilized across the sectors of film and television, games, interactive and immersive content. So if you're interested in getting in touch, that's our website there. That's all I've got. Thank you so much.